In the innocence and beauty of her youth, he loved her. So he set his heart on her, he wooed her, and he won her. He took her to himself, a precious virgin bride. He married her with vows of eternal, unfailing covenant love. He freely and extravagantly lavished his love on her and her only. He folded her into his warm and secure embrace. He covered her with his hand and he held her close to his heart. And he made himself one with her. He built a home for her in a dry and a barren place and bequeathed it to her as a permanent and perpetual bridal gift. He made it an oasis, a fountain of blessing, a house of comfort and hope for those who lived nearby and for friends who came from afar. He carried her on his arm. He shielded and protected her from those who would do her harm. He provided her with rich food and clothed her in garments of holiness. For Israel was his beloved, the apple of his eye. But she had a wandering eye and went after other lovers. She played the harlot and broke his heart. Freely and without shame, she gave herself to others to be ravished in illicit, vain, and futile pursuits. She lost the protection and provision of his hand. Enemies overwhelmed and oppressed her. But in his compassion and love for her, messengers were sent to lure her back to himself, her one true husband. But she had them beaten and killed. So he sent his heir, his only son, but she wouldn't receive him either. She despised and rejected him and had him killed too. Her enemies triumphed over her, and she was scattered and dispersed to distant lands, there to be shunned, shamed, rejected, despised, crushed, and humiliated. She was tossed aside like a dirty old rag by those to whom she had turned. Her language, her customs, her ways dissipated and evaporated. And she forgot him. But he did not forget her. His eye did not wander, and he did not search for another to replace her, for she, Israel, was the apple of his eye, the passion of his heart, the consort of his covenant. He pursued her, chasing her persistently to the far distant places to which, like a prodigal, she had run. His voice was constant, patient, incessant, summoning, petitioning her back to himself. And deep in her stubborn, rebellious heart, there was an insatiable yearning, an urgent longing. There was a pining for home. I have a home. I have a husband. I have a haven. Jerusalem. Though I have failed him, he has not failed me. He will not and cannot fail me. Though I gave myself to others, his heart toward me has not changed. He has not rejected, nor has he turned against me. The purity and passion of his love is as fervent as ever. I will return to him, my one true love. Perhaps he will forgive me and hold me close again, close to himself, close to his heart. And though she was found lacking, though she had fallen short, he was sufficient, constant, and true. Though swallowed up and among the nations as a worthless thing, I see Israel as gathered and garnered a pleasing end-time harvest to the Lord. Though she chased after lovers and could find none nor catch them, though she frivolously misspent the grain, the wine and oil, the silver and gold lavished on her by her one true husband, I see Israel returning to his embrace and care. Though she lived many days without safety, without security or tender care, without sacrifice, uprooted, dispersed, and persecuted, I see Israel returning and trembling to the Lord and to his blessings in the last days. Though adulterous and unfaithful, he has not lost his passion for her, for sweet Israel. He has brought her back to hold her again as his own, his cherished and precious delight. Though made a barren, wasted desert place, parched with thirst, I see Israel drinking from the rushing fountain of living water flowing with love and life from Yeshua, the fountain that cannot run dry. For he comes to her like the winter rains, like the spring rain that waters the earth. I see her as a luscious, fruitful vine, verdant, lush and green, planted again in the soil from which she was so violently uprooted and cast aside. I see her taking root, sprouting from rich and fertile soil, blossoming into bud, opening as a rose, splendid and radiant, in and on her land, the land he gave to her as his nuptial gift. I see her gathering and feasting on the bountiful harvest of his love and fidelity, filling the world with fruit. Though the house he built for her has been looted and burnt down by the mobs who came against her, he is rebuilding it once more. She was like the morning mist, like the early dew that disappears, like chaff swirling from the threshing floor, like smoke escaping through a window. But he has settled her again in her own shalom place, her true residence, her permanent home address. Though she became proud and forgot him, I see Israel is remembered. Though deep in corruption, I see Israel is washed and clean by the covenant of love that he swore to her in the days of her youth. I see Israel is pure again through the blood of the atonement spilt for her by the son that she rejected. I see Israel flowing with fine garments of righteousness, the recipient of his tender mercy, the object of his undying love, and the focus of his amazing grace. She gave us so much. Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. And though the world is gathered on her borders, we will not join the litany of condemnation, but rise together and say, Israel, you are my beloved, the apple of my eye.